Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the top, my interview show where I interview members of the comic book community about their musical interests and so forth. Uh, my next guest, I've been wanting to have one for a musical conversation for quite a while. Ever since uh, ever since I started thinking about doing music shows. Um, uh, my next guest was one of the top names that popped up in my head to have on, because I know he is, for lack of a better term, just as much into music as I am, maybe even a little more. But without further ado, Bub's World.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Always glad to be on top. Oh man, really, that's nice of you to say. Glad to be here, Donnie. Thanks for showing up in my streams when I'm doing my crap, and whenever I'm doing those vinyl hauls, because it's a very much smaller group. And most of my subscribers are still comic subscribers, so to
Right.
have just a few that go from one to the other, it's nice. It's nice to have. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I guess we'll get right into it.
All right.
Basically, the floor is yours. Whatever you want to talk about musically, I kind of do some lead-in questions and go from there. But I guess what are some of the records or albums that you've come across in your lifetime that have really sunk their teeth in?
Well, let's see. Hey, poor Mike. Albums that sunk my teeth into. Well, I guess when I was younger, it was whatever, the music of the day kind of thing, right? So whatever was playing, I enjoyed music probably my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, albums that I've had like experiences with, probably Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. I've had an experience with. Don't need to go any further than that. But stuff like that. Billy Joel, he had a couple of albums there that real influential in my musical taste. My parents were big into music. My dad had a record player when I was a kid, and I remember on the weekends we were allowed to pick one record to play. That was it. He controlled the rest of the music selection the rest of the time. But and when you think back as a kid, like I bet if I told my dad that now, he wouldn't remember it. Like that wasn't even a thing to him. It's just
Right.
it was an annoyance probably, if anything. But to me, it was a big deal to get to pick a record and to not only force him to listen to it, which he probably liked it because he bought it, right?
Right.
But then to force my brother and sister to listen to my selection was an extra special treat. Hey, we were just talking about you behind the before the show there, John. So no offense if you heard any of that. So anyway, so I just I remember the first album that I would almost always choose if it hadn't already been chosen was Thriller by Michael Jackson, which was a complete outlier in my dad's collection. Like that didn't belong at all in his collection. I don't know how it got there. I don't know if he won it in a raffle or or what, but he had that, and I used to always play it. Another one was I remember when I discovered Edgar Winter's group and heard Frankenstein for the first time. And I remember coming home every day after work. Even I was already older by the time I was aware that this album was in my dad's collection and I could play it, and I remember setting up an older record player and just playing it after work, just playing that Frankenstein just to unwind, if you will. So stuff like that. So there's a few off the top or on the top. There's a few on the top. Yeah.
Nice.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't. When I was growing up, my parents had a record player that was one of those combo deals: radio, record player, cassette player.
Yeah.
And I dug through their records, and I had a habit of getting blank tapes and dubbing everything over. But yeah, I know what you mean. There it was always fun to pick through that stuff and pick out a good one to listen to.
I remember when I was a little bit older, I had bought myself a very cheap. I mean, I'm sure they still make them, but it was like, I think it was a GPX, which is funny because, I think of PGX, and the quality wasn't much better. So it was like a GPX stack stereo system, right?
Right.
With two speakers, two kind of bookshelf speakers, and it was so like, things are really bad and fake when they purposefully try to make it look like something else and they just fail. So it had like faux stacks because it was just one box, but they would like cut in the lines and fake feet to make it look like it was a stacked unit.
Yep.
So I had in the picture on the box, it looked like, a legit, component system, but it wasn't. It was just a solid box with like etchings. So I remember having one of those, and it had a dual tape deck, and it had a record player. And I used to, and then by then CDs had already come out, and I had one of those tape adapters that you could play the CD. It had like an auxiliary port, and I had a little Discman, not an official Discman. I think it was a COS, if I recall, Discman, and it would plug into one side. So I used to buy those extended tapes that were like, I don't know, 180 minutes or some craziness like that on a cassette. Do you remember those?
Yeah,
they were made by like Memorex and like I don't know, CVS. I think had one, and they were. I had 2 or 3 cheap. Of those. They were super cheap. Yeah. They would if you press stop too hard or too fast, it would just snap. Because they were really thin, and they would warp over time. But I didn't care. It was the best bang for the buck, right? The most music I could fit on there. And so I would just flip records on there, record them onto that. Then I'd record CDs onto that. And then pretty much I would carry, a Walkman, which wasn't official either. I think it was some off-brand, some real off-brand. I didn't even think it was a COS. It was probably a GPX too. Maybe Maxell or something like that. I feel like that was a brand. Anyway, some real cheap stuff out there.
Yeah, I had a actually my parents got it for me as my high school graduation gift. It was a GPX, and it was just like you said. It was one of those stacked things, and it was the design of it was like it was supposed to be separate, but it wasn't. Yeah. And it had a 5-disc changer, had a dual cassette, and had a record player on top. I was in my glory. I loved that.
Absolutely. Wish I still had it. It probably sounded even worse today, but had the little needle, had the ruby needle, so it wasn't even a diamond needle, just those little red tips.
Yep.
Little ruby needle. I bet it sounded like crap, but I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I made the mistake of loaning it to my nephew, and I said, if you ever decide to get rid of it, I want it back. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't get it back.
I never got anything back I've ever told someone that too, You got to watch it. Like even when you give stuff to your own kids, you're like, I'm always watching when things get moved around. Where'd it go? All right, I see it. If anything ever happens, you don't come home one night, I'm going to make sure that goes to a safe spot, Yeah, that's what you got to do. What else?
What's that?
So what else?
What else? I don't know. Do you have any album memories that you would like to share? Like specific memories that
as far as actual like vinyl records, probably not. Other than, some highlights of my short collecting career of vinyl, it's been nice to pick up a couple of my favorite albums. You know, I tried to focus my collection because I already learned from comics and other things that if I don't focus my collection, it goes crazy. It balloons out of control.
Yeah.
I have to start with a focus or get to that focus very quickly, or it'll get bad. So I tried at first with my record collection. First, only new vinyl, so no vintage vinyl, just new, and then only colored vinyl. So only new and only colored.
Mm.
And that way I could have a very focused collection. How could that get too out of hand, right? Well, it turns out it didn't take me too long to game the system and find out that there were all these places that I could go and get the colored version of my favorite album and then hunt them down. Even though they hadn't been for sale for 10 years, I can find a colored version that's I don't know, 4 times the price on eBay. So what I found out was that even though that would have kept my collection very small and focused, it was also still growing and it was going to cost the most amount of money. So to acquire it. And since I wasn't getting them to just collect dust on the shelf, I wanted to be able to play all these. There wasn't really a whole lot of sense in paying $90 for a record that I then intended to play, right? So I decided to go ahead and give up on that when I started going to a few, vinyl sales to some shops, and they're like, $1, 50 cents, $2 for an album I always loved. I'm like, I'm not even counting that in my collection. I'm just going to put that on the side. It's going to go on another shelf. It's just on the side. And it's a compliment to my collection. Well, one thing leads to another, and then the shelf keeps growing, pushes other stuff out of the way, and, such is life. So, yeah, picking up those first few, I'll never forget, like when I first picked up my first used vinyl, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get this one. All the exceptions I made to the rules then became the new rule, So I'll get this one because even though it's not colored, it is a new edition and it's still new. I'll get this one because it's old and it still sounds good and it's in good shape. And then like the jackets didn't matter. Like some of my album jackets just look like absolute holy hell.
Yep.
I mean, they're just destroyed. I don't know what these people use them for, placemats for Irish setters or something, but they just look horrible, And so it is what it is. So there you go.
Right.
Now it doesn't matter if it plays; it goes in the collection, and if it almost plays, then I try and remember where the songs that don't work are and skip them. So,
I do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I wish. Focus. You said about focus. I wish I would have had. Of course, when you're in your early 20s, you don't really think about the future and what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I wish I would have had a little more focus as far as my music collection. Buying all those CDs, wasted all that money. I could have been out there getting some big boy books. And
I've had crates and crates of CDs, and I don't, some of them I wish I still had, honestly, and a lot of them I'm like I'm good without. Even though there's people still that collect CDs and that music in CD format. There's still a lot of people that collect that. It's a totally viable option.
Yeah.
But I don't really sense, even though the sound quality should be better than say streaming music and such, most streaming services. I don't know. It's something else to load, and if I'm gonna do that, I want the whole vinyl experience is more fun. It's more finicky, it's more delicate, and it's just more fun.
Right. Yeah, there's something about setting it down on there, and if you have one of those, I know some players have the little stop that you put on top of the at the center of the record.
Oh, the weight, the record weight.
Yeah.
I haven't delved into those yet. I've seen a few that I liked, but the one, you start doing research. That's one thing about the vinyl community. Holy moly, those guys are nuts. Like some of them are really nice and some of them aren't. And a lot of people, I just don't agree with a lot of the generally agreed upon things in the vinyl community. So it makes it difficult, I think, to follow them and to be part of them because like they're so scared of everything. Like they're doom and gloom. They think that a piece of dust will destroy they love to say destroy. Like if you like their number one thumbnail is what you're doing that might be destroying your record, and you don't know. So like, not everything has to be some 2020 special about records getting destroyed by paper, but a lot of it's like that. A lot of it is what you didn't know, that your record player was destroying your record. You didn't know that you should put it in upside down, backwards, and across. Otherwise, about the most that we have in the comic community are hanging your books, right? Will cause UV damage, right? It'll fade your books. So people will say hanging your books, displaying your books will destroy them. And then you'll also have people say things like, you ever come across a collector who puts their books front and back?
Yep.
On a packing board so that the spines don't get all crushed on one side. That's about it. That's all. That's the only two things I know of that will destroy your comics, So the comic community is much more chill when it comes to their collecting, and everyone kind of collects the way they want to. When the record community, if you don't do it the way they agree that it should be done, or if you're using the wrong record player and all this other stuff, then they just lambaste you. Like, they don't want to hear it. You're just a goon, so rough. Hey Jay, what's going on? Benny C's in the house too. So yeah, so it's interesting. But I was going to say, I had some warped records, and we were talking about records you couldn't play all the way through. So I had some warped records, and this record player that I got, it's a Victrola USB Pro something or another. I selected it for very specific reasons. It was the only record player under $150, which now it's like $180, but at the time it was on sale for $130. And it was the only record player in that sub 150 category that had all the features I was looking for. And one of the features was a removable or replaceable cartridge, stylus. So I wanted to have that. And so, but one of the downsides as I've been playing it is that the tone arm is very, very low. It's like almost even with the record table. It's almost even. So if there's any kind of warp, it actually lifts the tone arm from the arm, not from the needle, because it's playing this way, right?
Right.
It's playing that way. So the tone arm actually touches the record first and lifts the needle up and drops it right back down every time. So you end up with like an infinite loop on a warped record. So now other record players, they would just handle that and they would just ride the warp, and maybe you hear the difference if you're a real big audiophile or something, and maybe you don't. But this not even playable on any kind of, and I mean any kind of warp. I'm talking 2 centimeters of a warp off level, and it's can't do it. So so this weekend I replaced it. So this was the little cartridge it had on it, which is a perfectly good cartridge. It's a canonical cartridge, which means it has a cone at the end, right? So it's different shape of the needle. So the needle is canonical, and it's a cone shape, and it's very low and it's very short to the cartridge. So it's only like, I don't know, ½ inch or so from the tone arm top. So I figured that was my main problem, because if I could get the needle to lift, the tone arm would naturally have to go higher and it wouldn't touch the record. It should hit the needle first. So that's when I got, I picked up this Ortophone Omega, which was the admittedly cheapest one that fit the specs that I wanted. It was an elliptical cartridge, and so it is shaped different than the other one. The other one's a cone. This is an ellipsis, so it holds in the grooves better, and it gives you more sound production. So like when you hear a cymbal play with the canonical one, when you hear a cymbal play, it just kind of goes doom, right, like that. It's a very hard stop. Whereas when you listen on a canonical, on a elliptical, you hear it kind of it comes through afterwards. You can hear the run of the cymbal go. Okay. More trail. Yep. Also, the bass also is pluckier. So, and that's quite literal, meaning like if you hear someone playing a bass guitar, or especially an upright bass, an actual, upright bass. If you hear someone playing that, you know, if you're ever live and you hear live bass playing, you can hear the finger pluck. You can hear it touch the string, pluck the string, and you can actually hear the vibration like from their hand almost, as opposed to just the sound that the instrument makes. But you can hear the feel that they're putting on it, and it creates quite a resonance to the music that you don't get otherwise. So with this one, you just hear dunk 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 dunk, and with this one, you hear doom doom doom. Like, I don't know, you know, best I can explain it. So more depth, more range, more speaker difference, you know, a range between the two speakers, so more space between the two. So if you had your speaker set up across a room, you would hear the sound trail more from one side to the other. Than with the other needles. So the moving magnetic needles does a lot of work, and the better needle you have, the better stylus, I should say, the better cartridge you have, the better the sound production is going to be. Makes a record sound completely different. So anyway, so I changed that out this weekend. I was going to do a video on it, but I was worried that, you know, I didn't want to document extreme failure. This is my first time changing a cartridge, and this one was particularly difficult because it's a lower end, not low end, but it's lower than like a $500 record player, which make it very easy. You know, just pop them out. This had to be rewired. Like I had to wire this, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a little more nerve wracking. I didn't want to break it with the sweating under the camera and talking to myself and the whole routine. So I just changed out, but it sounds great. And I played all my warped records with no problem. I just rode the wave like any other record player would have. So I feel like I fixed the major, or the only major downfall of the record player. I fixed that now. And so I'm very pleased with it. Yeah, there you go. That's all.
I think I might have paid $70 for it. I want to get a better one, but like the like you said about the warp ones, it plays the warp ones fine. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, is this cheap piece of crap hurting my records?
Well, you know, some channels say yes. Some people. Does it have one of those red tips on the end?
Yes. It did. And the only reason I knew anything was wrong, I went to play a record one time and I set the needle down and it went right to the center.
Right off?
Yeah, it went right to the center. I'm like, so I lifted it up and saw that it was like it was broke or something. I don't know what.
Wow, yeah.
So I got it's like a metal with the needle on the end of it.
It's still like a ruby needle, right? Or ceramic.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, you should upgrade. That's one thing definitely they sound great. And if anybody wants to play their records on one of those, I'm not going to be the one to tell you it's going to destroy your records. I think that's poppycock. I think it's kids, honestly. And I don't mean to be rude when I say kids, you know, like poor over easy mode. I think he's like 12 or something. So I hate that Jay has to hear me say that. But when I say kids, I'm talking like, you know, anybody in their 20s, maybe even 30s. But what happens is like they start listening to each other a lot, you know. Like they get to the point where they're like, hey, I think this, I think that too. Well, it must be true. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't you talk to somebody who's been through it, you know, who's been playing records for 30 years instead of someone who's been playing it for 30 minutes and see what they can tell you, you know, but they don't want to hear any of that. So, you know, my thing is these people buying records in vintage shops and then obsessing over the perfection of the equipment that they're using to play it. You guys don't even know what we used to do to our records. Like, right. You know, I used them for dinner plates and Frisbee, and then they went back inside and played them, you know, skid them across the driveway. You guys have no clue. And if you ever get one that's got like something weird sticky on it, then trust me, you just throw it out because you don't want to know where that thing's been. I'll just tell you. But then, you know, they get them and they're like, oh, we have to perfectly lay this here. And oh man, these things have been handled rough their whole lives, you know. If you want to be that way, buy brand new records, and that's fine, you know, do it that way. But most things are not going to destroy your records, and there's hardly anything that these little hipsters can do to them to destroy them compared to what the rest of us did to them for years.
Right.
You know, but you know, it is what it is. Your records will be fine if you like the way it sounds. It's all that matters.
Right. Yeah, that's speaking of more seasoned collectors, I should say. There's a channel, and I can't remember the name of the channel, but he actually works on older equipment, older stereo equipment, 8-track stuff like that. And he's had his channel on YouTube for a long time, but for the life of me, I can't remember it. But I watched some of his videos and how he repaired like some of the inner workings of an 8-track player.
Yeah.
And he's explaining this. I'm like, this guy knows what he's freaking talking about.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think I know the guy you're talking about. I feel like it's V Westlife or something like that. Or,
I think that might be it. That sounds right.
And he's a big proponent.
Overhead cameras and stuff.
Oh yeah. Tons of stuff. And he's always bringing out some old tech and fiddling with it. I love that. That's stuff I did since I was a kid. Right. I used to you couldn't keep anything electronic around me in the house. I would just take it apart. I love taking it apart, rewire it, make, little burnable thing. Like I used to take you ever take a 9-volt and take like a single strand of wire between them and watch it catch fire?
Yeah.
Like I used to do that, not because I was a pyro or anything, just because I loved watching the electricity go, then it would just get too hot, as you're crossing the streams. But I used to love doing stuff like that. You would, if you ever wondered like why something wasn't working in my house, you just pick it up and shake it. And if there were loose parts, that was me. I took it apart just to see how it worked, broke it, and then tried to put it back together real quick and hide it. So, that's kind of what I did all growing up. So I love that kind of stuff. And he's definitely, that channel you mentioned is definitely a proponent that things will not destroy your records, and most of this stuff can be handled pretty normally. I mean, I've seen things like gloves. Yeah. And some people, they handle comics with gloves, right? That's a thing. Yeah. And some people who are like, I only wear gloves when handling comics. I'm like, okay, the 9,000 people who handled that before you did not. So who are you saving this for? But, it is what it is. Everyone does what they want to do. And that can be fun to obsess over. Little bits of your collection can be fun also. So, everybody having their own fun, their own way. I'm not going to knock them down for it.
Right. All right. I guess you had mentioned going to a concert not long ago. And so I guess I want to go into that. Do you have any favorite concert memories?
Yeah. Best concert I've ever been to was was Rolling Stones. My dad took us to the Rolling Stones, and he took us to see them at the Garden. I'm originally from New York City, so I got to see a lot of good music up there. And he took us to see it at the Garden. This was already well into their expensive era, where it was expensive to get tickets. we were in the nosebleeds, but it was an amazing show. And they popped out a stage. And it's funny because back then you didn't have a lot of information. There were still surprises. Like now, the only surprise is that you didn't bother to research something first. So now you're surprised, But back then, like I had no idea that there was going to be another stage pop up and a catwalk and all this stuff. I mean, it was just blew my mind, And then they walked all the way down, so they were a lot closer. I didn't need to look at the jumbotrons or whatever to watch them. And they go into an acoustic edition of Little Red Rooster, which is just like an old kind of blues, kick around song. And it just blew my mind, man. I was a Stones fan from that point on. I absolutely loved it, and really started me off with the blues just right. So I enjoyed that. And then some other great concert experiences. One time I've seen Billy Joel 3 times. I saw him twice at the Garden and one at I can't remember the name of it, but it's where the Islanders used to play. Maybe the Coliseum, I want to say. But anyway, it was where the New York Islanders used to play out on Long Island, and they closed that arena. So the year that they closed it, he did another show there to help close it down for the year because that was his hometown. So that was cool.
Okay.
But one of the times that I got to see him, I had actually won tickets to any event at the Garden that Ticketmaster had tickets to. I won 2 tickets to any event. And this was VIP tickets, no less, to any event at the Garden. And I chose a Billy Joel concert. And I had a little girlfriend at the time. You know, I was a kid. I don't know. Gosh, I was probably 16 maybe. And I said, all right, I want to go see Billy at the Garden. So, and I won the tickets. It was like a fundraiser. So I was a top performing, caller for the fundraiser. Like, I called people, a cold call them to get to raise funds for an event. Right. So I was a top performer. So I legitimately won it. It wasn't just luck. Right. So I wanted to spend it well. And so I took my little girlfriend there, and it turns out that the VIPs, we were in a champagne section. So now I've always looked slightly older, if not more than slightly older than my age. So this was nice. So I walked in there. Now she looked young, but honestly, all the girls in the champagne section looked young. So she looked young, but it was dark, and we didn't order anything. We just sat down, but then they passed a tray, and they literally passed a tray of champagne, and everybody took one, and the tray kept passing. So we were drinking champagne. We were like 15 drinking champagne, listening to Billy Joel at the Garden. That was awesome. That was a great experience. Same little girl. This is like a horror story. So we go from 2 of the best concert experiences I've ever had to one of the worst concert experiences I've ever had. Right. So, the Beacon Theater, which is still my favorite venue. It's in New York City, and it's very intimate, and it has like balcony seats. It's a very, very old theater, very historic. And so it's real close up to the stage. And my parents had taken me to see Steve Miller Band, which I was always thankful when they would take me somewhere. And it was absolutely fantastic concert. I mean, it freaking rocked, right? Well, my dad had bought those tickets, I believe. Well, then somebody at work had won a pair of tickets, and they weren't going to use them, and they gave it to him. They're like, hey, I got 2 tickets to Steve Miller Band. He was like, we just saw it last week. He's like, maybe my son will take them. So he takes the tickets from his coworker, and he gives them to me. He's like, all right, here's 2 tickets to Steve Miller Band. I'm like, I just saw him yesterday. He's like, that's okay. He's like, why don't you take your little girl and go with her to the concert? He said, only catch is it's in New Jersey. I'm like, New Jersey? I had never been out of the state by myself. Again, I'm like 15, 16. I'd never been out of the state by myself. I was like, oh, okay. He was like, so you got to find your way there and find your way back. So he helps me, tells me the bus schedule, the train schedule, all this stuff. And so he's going through it all, gives me the tickets. I'm getting ready to go. And he's like, look, the last train leaves at this time. The last bus leaves at this time. If you miss those, don't call us to come pick your ass up in New Jersey. Because I lived in the Bronx. He's like, we're not coming to get your ass, so don't miss those. But you're going to be walking down the Jersey Turnpike. I'm like, yeah, all right, I won't miss it. Whatever. I got to watch, Back when people wore watches, I still do. But yeah, like, all right, I got to watch. You remember, this is before cell phones. I guess beepers were kind of a thing, but nobody had them but doctors and pimps. I was like, all right. So I take my little girl, and first concert we'd ever been, and the opener was Government Mule, and they were awesome. And no, I take it back. They were the opener of the other one. This one was I always get it confused. It was either Alabama or no, it was Allman Brothers Band. Okay, so Allman Brothers Band opening up for Steve Miller, and they were just going awesome. Well, the opening act, they played like 8 songs, like no joke. They played well into the starting set, or what should have been the starting set of Steve Miller Band. So I was already getting nervous. And then Steve Miller Band comes on, and the show was, I can't explain to you how much better the show was at Jersey than it had been at the Beacon Theater. And I love the Beacon Theater, but I was up in a balcony at the Beacon Theater. I was like in general population pit for the one in Jersey. And plus I had my little girl with me, and she was in, a barely there tight, whatever. I mean, barely there. Like I was bad. I used to like buy her heels that were like that tall and dresses that I could get for $10 at the dress shop that if you got them wet, they would shrink and like be popping stitches as she walked. So anyway, I used to dress her, right? So we go to this great concert and it was freaking awesome. I'm there. I got my little girl there. We're rocking and all this stuff. Well, it's just going on. And I'm like, man, it's getting late. It's getting late. And then there was a bus that took us from the train there, and the bus supposedly was going to make a final round at the end of the concert. But I was like, we're running out of time. We're going to miss the train. And so then at the end of the show, they come out and they do their, thanks and everything. And they give their final thing. I'm like, okay, we got to go. We got to go. They're coming out. They did their encore. We got to get the heck out of here. And then they said, hey, if you guys are up for it, they brought the Allman Brother Band back out. And then the Allman Brother Band and Steve Miller Band started a jam session. And they're like, we're going to record a jam session. You guys are welcome to stay. We're going to have a good time. We're going to go late tonight. And they start freaking playing. Well, it was like better than everything Allman Brothers Band done by themselves, better than everything Steve Miller Band done by themselves. I mean, it was like amazing. I was in musical heaven. I got this little girl was like starting to get shivery because it was getting cold. Like, you should have brought a jacket. Let's go. Well, I'm wearing like my big polo and oversized polo of the day and shorts and everything. So it was summer. It was summer night. It was the end of summer though. And in New York, when the sun goes down in summer, even then it gets pretty cool of the evenings, or at least it was. I want to say it was probably September, late September or something. So I was like, all right. So we stayed for like 5 or 6 songs. And I said, we got to go. So we hightailed it over there. Of course, the last bus was gone. We were already looking at the train schedule. I would have had maybe 30 minutes to catch the train. And it was probably a 15-minute bus ride and the bus was gone. I was like, I said, we're screwed. So I better find a payphone. Again, no cell phones, nothing like that. I had exactly a quarter left after everything that I had spent. Actually, it was like 50 cents in that day. I had exactly enough money for one phone call. It was like being in prison. And I was like, all right. So we go down there and I make the call. I got my mom on the phone who's sleeping because it's like 12:30 at night or in the morning, however you want to look at it. So she's like, I'm like, Mom, don't tell Dad, because my dad didn't even drive. I'm like, don't tell Dad, sneak out of bed, come get us. We're in Jersey. We're stranded. She's like, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, oh, no, she's telling him. So thankfully, my dad didn't come, but my mom did. And as soon as I hang up the phone with her, the bus comes. I was like, no, because the show ended. While I was on the phone, the show ended. And the bus came like he promised he would to pick everybody up. And I was like, I didn't even have to call him. I could have got out of here, would have just barely made the train. Everything would have been fine. Anyway, I know it's a long story, but it gets worse. So, so I was sitting there. Well, to get from where my parents were to me, it's like almost 2 hours in good traffic. So we had to sit there. Everybody cleared out. They closed the gates. We're sitting there on a bench, freezing our asses off. I mean, it was freezing. My little girl in there with her little, tiny little strapless, she was freezing. I was like, take my shirt, chivalry's not dead. I give her my shirt. So she's sitting there all wrapped up. I was always big fella and she was very small. So she was all wrapped up in this giant swaddling shirt. And I'm sitting there with my nipples to the breeze, freezing. And then sure enough, my mom pulls up and there she sees the sight of me sitting on a park bench, freezing. And my little girl, she's like, get in the car. So anyway, I heard about that for a long time. I was in deep trouble. I was grounded. No kind of parties or anything. I was stuck and I got fussed at forever over that. Never did another set of tickets come my way via my father. I promise you that. So that's it. That's my worst concert experience. And I'll never forget it, darn you. There you go.
But the question is, did you tell them that you didn't need to call?
That was the first thing I said. The first thing I said was, I'm sorry. I didn't even need you guys. The bus came. I just freaked out. I got scared. I got nervous. They were like, you should have been on that bus an hour ago. It doesn't matter. I was like, oh. Yeah, they pulled that card on me because really I should have been home around the time that I was calling them. That concert, it must have been 5 hours of music. easily. I mean, it went on forever. It was great, but not worth that. So
Yeah.
it happens.
Not worth being hassled for the
No, man,
next
it was
couple of
bad.
years.
That poor girl, she had it rough. One of my first, girlfriends that how it is, and you're young, and you're like, I know better than you, and I'm going to teach you how to be a woman, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That poor girl, she had it rough. She deserves a medal for putting up with a young me, wherever she is. I'm sure she's somewhere covered in grandkids. I'm not my problem. But she surely deserves a medal. That's it.
No disagreement there, Jay.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, I've driven in Jersey. They're not nice people.
No fun. No fun at all.
I guess musicians. Do you have a Mount Rushmore, as it were?
Ooh, I don't know. I guess, but it sounds so lame. Like the people I would put on there, it would be the lamest. As soon as I would say who, first of all, and forgive me, I only have like half a master's degree in social science, but how many faces do I need for a rush? Is it 4 or 5?
4.
4?
5.
Are you just going with 4, or do you know it's 4? Somebody
there's
in
4
the chat,
on Mount
look
Rushmore. I don't know.
I don't know who's
I'm pretty sure
who's on the real one.
Rushmore, but
I don't know. 4. All right. 90 miles from comics. Says 4.
Hey, Chad.
Yeah, good to see you, brother.
How you doing, man?
All right. So yeah, we're gonna go with that. 4. So I would say probably Billy Joel, Jeff Lynne.
Nice.
And then I would probably go with, man, that's so bad. I don't know. I feel like I should pick somebody older, so I'm going to go with Jerry Lee Lewis.
I like it.
And I'd probably go with the Stones. I'd probably put Mick Jagger on there, and then I'd call that done. But I'm telling you, 90 faces, bub. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that'd be tough. Listening while setting up a new computer. I hope you're using your phone because you're gonna, with all the restarts. Good deal.
Jamie.
I'm telling you, at any given moment, it could be Bryan Adams and and Rod Stewart and Elton John. It could get a lot lamer, is my point. It very quickly. And Sting. There you go. There's a nice one. Elton John, Bryan Adams. I mean, but then like, where do you put Freddie Mercury? He's got to be on there somewhere. I mean, it's just It's so tough. Maybe Gilmore. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one. Good luck with that one. 4 is too small. It's not enough room. I need more people on there.
I know exactly what you mean. It like, especially as far as like singers go, I always split it into 2 categories: singers and frontmen.
That's
because
fair.
There's a lot of singers that are not frontmen.
That's true.
There's a lot of frontmen that are crap singers.
Absolutely, but our leaders are good bands. Yeah. I mean, like I look at the Foo Fighters. Like I would never listen to a Dave Grohl album, like of just him crooning. Like I'd be out. But I listen to Foo Fighters, for sure. So absolutely. There's a good one. How about Steven Tyler? I listen to Aerosmith all day long, but I'm not going to listen to a Steven Tyler solo album. Count me
absolutely
out.
Not. No.
Yeah, and that's poor Mike saying music depends on the mood. That's perfect. So if I'm in a blues mood, I come up with 4 guys for that. Come up with 4 guys for rock. Come up with 4 guys for soul. That's a little easier. Give me a genre, and I can start setting up multiple Rushmores. How about that? A rush of Rushmores. Yeah, sounds good. I can dig it. What else you got, Donnie? Come on, fire away.
I think that's it, really. I don't know if you well, that's my normal questions is, concert experiences, favorite albums.
Yeah. I've been thumbing at the guitar for about a year now. making no headway.
I was gonna. Yeah.
It's like I start as soon as I start feeling myself improving and seeing light at the end of the tunnel, I'll take like a 2-week break and then get back to it, and I've lost it all. I've lost it all. It's like I've never seen one before. But they're still fun to collect. But I would like to get back to learning. It's a lot of time. You really have to do it every day. Like it's the only hobby that I have right now that I would have to do every day and can't multitask. Like collecting books is kind of a little bit more passive because I can do it, and yet, stuff's coming in the mail, whenever it comes, and so collecting things is less time intensive. You do it once or twice a week and then you reap the benefits for a while. And listening to music, I can do that while doing other things, and playing video games and listening to music is fun. But when you just sit down and just try and learn to play an instrument, it's like there's no time for fun. You just got to keep, and it's not always fun. Like it's fun to hold the guitar, but to try and make it sound good is not always fun. It's a lot of work. So
and if you don't have the finger dexterity, like that was always my problem, was getting my fingers to develop that memory of the chords and stuff. Like, I had a hell of a time. That's why I switched to bass, and I sucked at that too.
I've thought about it. I've thought about switching to bass, but I already own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guitars. I already own 5 guitars. So like regular, lead or rhythm guitars. Like if I start switching to bass, my wife's going to kill me. I have one saved in my Amazon cart anyway, but and it's going to be the bedroom. Like I like to have a guitar in every room, so that way it encourages me to pick up and play. And when I'm in the room, it's always staring at me, telling me to practice. So in the bedroom, I'd like it to be a bass. So I go when I walk in, very nice. So the bedroom's going to be a bass, and I've already selected the one. It's going to be a Hofner violin bass. So
nice.
That's what I want for in that room. It's going to cost me about $400. So for even the lowest end one, which is all I'm deserving of. But I really feel like I want to try to learn, give an honest effort to the rest of the guitars first, because ultimately, like if I had to pick my favorite guitarists, it would be B.B. King and Brian Setzer. So those are my two. That's who I would want to emulate. Well, good luck with that. And like, how many people have tried to sound like B.B. King? Good luck. And I'm so far from it now that I don't know that I'll ever get there. So at some point, I may just ditch and go for Paul McCartney bass. That's about where I'm at. So, yeah, I believe that. I do believe that. And I believe it so much that I don't think that it's a consolation prize. I think it would be just giving up on one and trying the other and seeing if I have more aptitude, just some natural, maybe it works more naturally for me, but I'm scared.
Right.
I've got so much invested in these. I want to keep after it. I want to make them play. Plus, like, I don't know how you are about people touching your instruments and stuff, but like for me, they sound so bad when I touch them that when someone comes in the house, or I have one at the office at work, if anyone says, "Hey, I play guitar," I say, "Really? Play it." And I pick one up and I say, "Make it sing." That's what I say to them. Make it sing, because I want them to. It's so good to remind me that it's capable of making the sounds I want to hear. I just have to get to the point where I can do it, but I want someone to remind me. I always pick my favorite out or closest one. I say, "Here, play this, please." And they play it and make it sound so good. I'm like, yes, I love it. It makes you so happy. So, yes, yep. Oh, listen at him. John Stout. Good to see you guys. Thanks for all stopping in, hanging out with us.
Absolutely. Good to see John in here.
Yeah, it is.
I agree with that. My finest moment as far as playing bass was learning the bass line for Green Eyed Lady. I was so happy the day I worked at, or the couple of days that I worked that out. I was like, yes, I got it. I had it freaking down.
Yeah. I tell you though, and a lot of the local band flyers and stuff, they're always looking for a bass player. I feel like it's in demand. I also think that they end up being the GOAT for a lot of bands who are struggling or can't keep time or having trouble or have poor audio equipment to where they can't hear what's going on. And they're like, hey, you got to play better. You're not in time. Because, I mean, if your bass player sucks, you don't have a chance. I mean, you're totally thrown off. I mean, the lead guitarist can freaking pass out on stage and you can still get through a song. You know, the bass player, it's true. You ever see some of these guys are terrible. The freaking lead singer forgets the words, drummer drops his sticks. I mean, all kinds of that stuff will, and they play through. You know, they'll play through as long as the bassist is going. They can keep the rhythm and they can keep the beat going. But when he quits, everyone just stops playing. Like, oh, what happened?
Right.
I'll tell you.
Yeah. You think about some of the greatest and how Stonewall they were. John Paul Jones.
Yeah.
Ox. Wyman. You mentioned the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a statue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They should do that. We should have we're going to do a Mount Rushmore for every genre of music. Then we're going to do a Mount Rushmore for every instrument. Then, it's going to get crazy. I'm going to miss the last bus if I keep that. I'm going to have to call my mom to pick me up. Oh, man. Yeah. My dad plays piano and I played the trombone as a kid and I sing. But I mean, my singing is not, I've done some plays in local theater and I've done, I've been a praise and worship leader at a church, mostly for the singing opportunity. And, and I've done a lot of that kind of stuff. So, church music, but the rough thing about church music is they'll make you think you sound good and you don't. Like that's the hardest part. People are like, I sing in a church band. I'm like, get out as fast as you can. Because everyone tell you how great you are, you'll never get better, and you're probably pretty terrible. So, but anyway. So I've been doing so, I'm musically turned anyway, and I can carry a tune. But man, that guitar is tough. God, it kicks my ass. Yeah. It just kicks my ass. I had a teacher for a hot minute and he quit me. And I never missed a a session. He still quit me, but nice guy. You may know him. He's in the community. Nice guy, but he had some stuff going on. I let him go. He was too busy. But I've been wanting. I had an old alcoholic neighbor back in a place I used to live, and he's still there. And I thought about hollering at him. He plays a mean guitar, but I don't know if I want to be taught by an alcoholic. I think that might be a little damaging. What do you think?
I don't know.
Tough call, isn't
it? There might be some knowledge in the old bottle, but
I'm sure there is some there. But then at that, it would seem like he would get frustrated really quick.
Yeah,
because he's like, "Oh, just do this."
In between swells.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why you can't do this. Just do this. Hey, did you see my hands? Do what I did. I don't know. We'll have to see. I've thought about hollering at him, but that means he'll be over for Thanksgiving too if I'm not careful. So,
I got a brief story in regards to 90s comment here about Vic Wooten. A friend of mine years ago, he doesn't work there anymore, but the place I work, he was trying to convince me of the skill and how brilliant Vic Wooten is. And so I got to doing research and I was like, this guy's a jazz player. He better know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, and he is phenomenal by all accounts. Vic Wooten is incredible, but he's no James Jamerson. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I think with jazz too, you become a solo artist for 3 minutes at a time.
Right.
And you're all of a sudden the lead. You're the lead voice of the band for a while, and that's very different than playing bass lines, I would say.
Yeah.
Keeping the band together.
Yes. All right. Well, that's all I had as far as those like musical
This is your
related
fastest
questions.
episode yet.
No, I don't know about
How did
that.
that happen? I talked for 30 minutes. I got getting lost in Jersey.
We still have, but that was a fun story.
I hope. We'll see on the replay. See how many views you get on it.
Let me pull up my closing questions. Unless you had anything else you wanted to discuss, talked about.
No, I'm good.
Oh,
Aspirations for the future. Yeah.
Inspirations for the future.
Yeah. I'd like to be better at playing guitar. I'd like to be worthy of getting a tube amp and knowing that it sounds better when I play it. As opposed
tube
to like
amps
a
are so
combo
nice.
So there's so many. I'd like to have a Fender Bluesman Junior. That's a nice tweed. That's what I'd love to have, but I'm not worthy of it. And it's $500, you know? So it's like, I'm not going to spend that unless I know it'll sound good because of me and it together, you know? So just going to keep growing the record collection and comic collection and all the other collections. It's never ending.
Yeah. So some of those guitar bass instruments, some of them can get a little salty. I once played I think it was $7,000. It was a brand called Tobias, and it was a through neck bass. Through neck.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
I sound like John Paul Jones. Just playing like 2 or 3 notes. It was amazing.
That's cool.
But anyway, now is the closing questions that were made famous by Inside the Actor Studio, the Bernard Pivot questions. So, what is your favorite word?
Yes. Well, I love to hear it. I love to hear it.
What is your least favorite word?
Well, can I go with the obvious?
Sure.
I mean, I could easily say no, but I guess my least favorite word is a single word. I don't know. It'd probably be no or damn. Like I hate saying that word. I hate and I don't mean like in the sense of the cussing. I just mean, you know, that extreme disappointment that you have when you do something you didn't mean to do. You're like, damn. You know, you feel like Charlie Brown for like 6 hours. Like that's how I hate that. I hate that. You know, anything that brings me to say that, or when I hear other people get so disappointed that they say that, I'm like, dang, come on, let's fix this.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to be careful of this next one because. What excites you?
Well, I don't know what your channel is rated, but I could show this book right here. What excites me? Excellence. I love when I find excellence in myself, it's the best. And when I find excellence in others, when, you know, when my wife walks out and she just put on some new clothes or my favorite old clothes, and I'm like, you look excellent. Like that's, if it could be any better, I can't imagine it. You know, I used to tell her that, and I probably still do tell her that. But you know, just the idea that I tell her I couldn't have created her in a lab. Like I didn't know enough. I didn't know, like if somebody said, create your perfect woman, I couldn't have done it because she's so excellent that I wouldn't have known what ingredients it would take to make it. It's like you ever eat something that's so phenomenal that you're like, wow, that's excellent. And you're like, if somebody gave you all the ingredients and told you exactly how to do it, you'd never come close to that because there's perfection in it, you know? So I like that.
Yeah.
Excellence excites me.
What turns you off?
There's nothing worse than a smart ass dummy. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Because, and don't get me wrong, I know I'm a smart ass and I got lots of friends that are smart asses, but there's an intelligence that runs through every one of my smart ass friends and I can appreciate. You know, they're sarcastic, they're maybe a little hurtful at times, but you know, they're smart asses, you know, they're jerks on occasion, but for the most part, there's an intelligence that runs through them that I can respect. But when a dummy or somebody that just has the base of intelligence and hadn't had an original thought his whole freaking life, and then he shows up and tells you how things are, you're like, oh God, right. Please. And I know I've gotten worse with that because my wife, she doesn't, I tell her all the time, you don't suffer fools well. She really doesn't. Like if she comes across an idiot, she's like, oh, great. One of these idiots again. I'm like, no, take it easy. They might not be an idiot. And you're like, no, they're stupid. Look at them. They're stupid. I'm like, no, they might not be. Give them a chance. Hey, they did some stupid things. They said some stupid things, but they might not be an idiot. No. Do you see what she was wearing? You know, yeah, I don't say she's, you know, she's that judgmental or anything, but for sure, she just does not, just doesn't suffer fools well, and that's rubbed off on me over the years. So now I'm getting worse. I'm getting worse. The more idiots I come across, I just like people are like, oh, well, you know, I'll cross the street for an idiot. Like I went to high school in Harlem. You know, I've walked right through the heart of gangs while they were talking about who they were going to jump next. Like you just walk right through them, you know. But I'll cross the street for an idiot. I'm like, look at this idiot. Let's go this way. Who knows what this moron is capable of? He could bring us all down. Oh, look. Oh, poor Jackson. We're not talking about you explicitly.
What sound or noise do you love?
Sound or noise do I love? I don't know. Laughter. I love to hear people laugh. That can also be some of the worst sounds you ever heard. Most people laughs are enjoyable. And if you get them in a big enough group, they can be drowned out. But some people are just like nails on a chalkboard when they start cackling. But I like the sound of laughter. Nothing is more pure joy, you know. Anything that can be caught off guard, you know, usually you have to work people into every other emotion. Like to make someone cry, it can take a long time or drawn out experience. You know, they have to think of something specifically and then dwell on it, not just a passing thought. You know, sometimes it takes a lot of things, even if you're someone who cries at Hallmark commercials, it still took you 1 minute and 30 seconds to get there. You know, right. You know what I mean? But laughter is a spontaneous emotion that is infectious as well and positive. That can't be anything better than that.
What sound or noise do you hate or dislike?
Children's laughter. No. No, there's nothing worse than a whine. Any kind of whine. Like that sound right there. There's 5 people that'll shut this stream down just for hearing that. Yeah. You know, there's nothing worse than a whine. Obviously, children whine probably more than anybody, but you know, I've known some adults who whine, but just the audible sound of a whine, I can't stand it. God, self-pity. I mean, I've been down and I deserve to be down in my life, you know, but man, that self-pity whine that somebody took something from you and can't stand it. Yeah. I'll do something about it. That's what I say. Yeah.
What is your favorite curse word?
Wait, so can we say it?
Yeah.
I would say probably bitch.
Bitch?
Yes. And I know it's not a devastating one, but it's a good one because it can, like most good cuss words, it can be used both ways. So if you say, that's a bad bitch, that's a good thing. If you say, that's a bad bitch, that's a bad thing, right? That's a bad thing. And if you find a girl who really hates being called that, you can wear it out and they'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you say, you're nothing but a bed. Why? I can't believe you called me that. I'm like, I can't believe you stuck around for me to call it to you twice. Like, you stick around the third time, you deserve it again. You know, so anyway, it can be very hurtful and it can be very complimenting. So I'm good with that.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Attempt?
Yes.
Like now? So this isn't like a history.
No,
This
this
isn't
is
like,
hypothetical.
well, when I was 20, I should have did this. I had a chance
Yeah.
to, you know, be an inspector for the Swedish swim team. No, all right. So you're saying like from this point forward,
Right.
I don't know. I've had, and it sounds stupid to say it out loud to groups, but you know, I've always had people tell me that I need to go into stand-up comedy, that I have a very easy flow. And my wife says it all the time, but you can't trust what your wife says, especially if she loves you. If your wife
Right.
doesn't love you, you can take what she says to heart because she's probably correct. And those will be the long list of reasons if she leaves you. But if your wife loves you, you can't trust what they say.
Right.
They'll tell you, they'll prop you all the way up and then somebody will knock you right off. But anyway, so people told me that, but I've always thought that anything that involved fame was probably not good for me. Like not that much. Not if I was any good at it. I mean, think about what those guys do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gotta suck. I mean, hang out in bars, drunk people all the time, people puking and doing drugs and getting drunk and you're trying to work. Like it's hard enough to work with idiots. Like, could you imagine working with drunk idiots who paid for the right to be there? You're like, oh my gosh, I don't want any part of that. I would say, you know, I've always thought some kind of contract law. I like contracts, you know, for what it is. So I think if somebody said you could push a button now and pivot careers, then I would say, okay, I push a button now. And if I didn't have to do all the schooling, then maybe some contract law. I think that'd be fun for me. You know, I know it sounds boring. I'd rather do contract law than stand-up comedy, but you know, you can always do that on the weekends.
I guess there's a difference at some point. You know, do you want to do what you love and stay in love with it, or do you want it to be your job and hate it?
Well, you know? And there's always the caveat of success,
right?
You know, would I rather be, you know, like people always say, especially in our circles, oh, I'd love to run a comic shop. Do you know any happy comic shop owners? Like any of them that are successful, that make a bunch of money, that aren't working like 80 hours a week. And, you know, now they all have to hustle Facebook and, you know, Instagram and try and peddle all their wares to all these virtual idiots. It's like, that doesn't sound like fun at all.
No.
I mean, do I want to hang out in a comic shop? Yeah. But then have you ever been in a comic shop? Like me and my buddy Jambo, right? You know, Jambo Comics.
Right.
He doesn't live too far away. And we always tease because, you know, after we go to a convention or something, we'll go, you know, have a few drinks and some chicken wings or something. And then we'll laugh about all the people we saw at the convention. And with the express intent to, at the end of all that, you know, bashing of others, to say, well, we're not like those geeks. You know, we're the cool geeks that they wish they were like. And I'm like, yeah. And they're sitting at the next table saying the same thing, you know? So you want to be, you know, so what happens is I go to the comic shop and it feels like that. Like I see some of those guys working the comic shop and they're talking to people that I would have no patience to talk to. Mm-hmm. I mean, talking about the very minutia of something and, you know, whether Green Lantern's ring was a size 9 or a size 10. I'm like, I can't have that conversation. And I definitely don't want to have that conversation every time that customer walks in the door. And if that's what it takes to be successful, I'm out, you know?
Right.
So yeah, if I could have a successful business in a comic shop that I didn't have to actually work, yeah, that'd be cool. If I just owned it and let somebody else manage it and I just fly on the wall and hung out there and got cheap collections, that sounds cool. You guys only wish you are as cool as I am. See, that's what I'm saying. Look at Jackson right there. But you know that everybody that goes to the convention, they're always seeing other people that are like, oh, I'm not like those dorks. I'm like, no, you're like this dork. Like that's, you know, that's what you're like, you know, you're not like that one. You're like this one. So, you know, it's all in good fun. We're just tease each other because we know how absurd it is that grown ass men are getting excited for picking up these comic books, you know, and then going to sit at a bar and relish over our treasures. You know, we know it's silly. We have quite a bit of self-awareness going on there. Yeah.
What profession would you not like to do?
I mean, there's a ton of professions I would not like to do. I guess there's a certain point at which you kind of have to draw a line, and I guess I would think if somebody was ramping up the money and you would still say no, like if you give me enough money, I'll serve coffee at Starbucks. If you pay me enough money, yeah, I would do that. I don't want to do that. Hell no. But, I'll flip burgers if you paid me enough money. Like if the money was way more than flipping burgers deserves, like
right.
if I'm bagging fries, but I'm making like $45 an hour doing it. Okay. Give me that job. I'm good with that.
I'm there.
But, but then some things are just reaches a point. And I think like one of those things would be anything that involved cleaning trash or crap. Like I got to draw the line somewhere, a human especially. Now you take me to the zoo and you tell me my job is to clean the elephant paddock. Like I could probably do that for a fee. If you give me enough money, I'll shovel elephant shit. But I don't think there's any amount of money that's going to make me touch a nice hot steaming pile of human dookie. I guess I've reached my limit, man. I'm done. I'm cashing out. I'll be poor if that's the case, Right. And also like, and when I say trash guys, I'm not talking like Chad. I think he works sanitation, but there's sanitation, and then there's like sanitation. You know what I mean? There's the guys who are like, if I have to wear anything like waders, like, like fishing waders, like that go above, if I'm in sewage and raw stuff like that up above my waist, I'm done. I'm checking out. I can't do it. So I might try it for enough money, but it has to be a one-time thing, like Fear Factor or something like that.
Yeah.
That's it. Poop. I'm drawing the line at poop. Human poop. That's where I'm drawing the line. All right. We got that out there.
All right. And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
It's a pleasure to meet you. So I'd like him to say to me.
Nice
when I get up there, I want him to look at me and say, wow, it's a pleasure to meet you in person. I'm glad you're here. I'm like, oh, thanks. What do I need to do? And he'll say, just sit down. We'll make you some chili or something like that. I would like, it would be awesome if God's said to me that, wow, what an honor. So glad you made it up here. So happy to see you. You're a prince among men. Here, take your seat. That'd be pretty cool. So.
Awesome.
All right. What am I supposed to say? Is there a right answer to that one?
Nope. These are all your own personal responses, I should say, I guess.
Yeah. I have to rewind the tape and write these down. See if I agree with them in an hour. I'm going to hold strong in the don't touch human poop, though. I'm going to hold strong on that one. The others might fluctuate.
All right. Well, Bob, this has been an awesome show. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing some more about your musical influences and so forth.
Thank you. Yeah, that's about right. Glad you're here. Yeah, he instantaneously restored my back, and now it's time to get to work.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on. This has been a hoot, an absolute hoot.
Do you have anything you want to announce or whatever?
Nah, you guys, if you're not, my channel it hit 1,300 and it's been real slow ever since. Like it's been just creeping along, 1 or 2 subscribers a month for the last 3 months or so. So at that point, I'm like, I guess I've topped out. I don't intend to really do anything different. So, I'm mixing in a few more of the different things that I like. And, and if people like it, then that's great. And if they don't, there's other channels. So it's not a big deal. I don't really want to be a promotional channel, if you will, It's not really my style. So, I like doing things like interviewing and stuff and, talking to people and not interviewing people that I have to, but just talking to people I want to, So,
right.
the channel is what it is. It's not really meant to be a moneymaker. So it's just an outlet for some creativity. And, and it's been fun. It's like its own little hobby, isn't it? The YouTube hobby. It's separate from all the collecting and stuff. It's just like a basis of things to talk about and to fool with. But the YouTube itself is kind of a hobby unto itself. So I'm glad I still enjoy it. And, comic hauls, vinyl hauls, bit of the odds and ends things. So I did a statue unboxing the other day. It was
nice.
It was the most riveting thing 47 people ever watched. That's not their words. Those are mine, but still. Right.
All right. Well, as for me, I have cover to cover coming up this Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We're discussing the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds.
Oh, nice.
So that's gonna be fun. I hope.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be?
I got a lot of information to sort through. I didn't realize how much information there was on this album, but
I bet
there's quite a bit. So hopefully the other guys are having lots of fun digging through it too. But Bub, again, I want to thank you for accepting the invitation to come on.
Oh, yeah, thanks for asking me. It's awesome.
Really great conversation.
If you have anybody ever drop out last minute or something, can't make it, hit me up and I'll give you different answers to every question you ask tonight. I promise.
All right. I'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
Also, as always, I want to thank everybody who popped in the chat tonight. Poor Mike and John and Benny Compton. It's always good to see Benny pop in. Jay from Over Easy. Who else was here? Mark Knapp was here. 90. Jay Hood and Gore and John Stapp. Gore Vidal always dropping fantastic knowledge and stories.
Oh, yeah. So, what a treasure.
Yes. I know he probably wouldn't accept the invite, but I'd love to have him on. But
I don't know that I feel like I saw him on a stream once, but just as an avatar.
Yeah.
I feel like I maybe saw him once. Yeah, he's a chat all-star.
Yeah.
Look at him. Enjoyed it, he says. Hey, don't forget to hit the like button, smash a thumbs up, and give a like. Share it with your friends and family. If there's anyone you know that might appreciate this fine content, share the love and learn them something new today with Mastodon Comics and Music. Fantastic fella, fantastic channel. I'll be here for the next 12 seconds.
All right. Thanks for that, Bub, because
no problem.
I can't do that.
Yeah. Sub this man up. Give him a like. Give him a sub.
All right. Again, cover to cover this Saturday. In the meantime, get out there and listen to some music.
Yeah.